It's countdown to kickoff and Bud Light Game Time on the road.
An unexpected win today would cap off one of the most unexpected turnarounds in school history as the Oklahoma State Cowboys can win the Big 12 championship with a victory in Arlington over the Texas Longhorns. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Countdown to Kickoff, 98.1 FM, WWLS, the sports animal. Gideon Hamilton back in Oklahoma City in our Sports Animal Studios. And the ultimate Jim Traber is down at the Tipsy Oak, ready to cover the game for us in person. And Jim, this is a special day that I don't think anybody would have anticipated just a few weeks ago.
No, I think you're right on the money, Gideon. Amazing turnaround. You know, I got to tell you that, I've been on Mike Gundy for different things at times. He's a great coach. But I think that this year is one of his best coaching jobs. And I really like the fact that they realized they weren't doing the right things, Gideon. That's hard for a coach that has an ego and has done a great job. You know what I'm saying? It really is. So I think after that 2-2 start, losing that horrible game to South Alabama, I think they had that off week, couldn't come at a better time. They came back. They beat up on Kansas State, who we obviously know is a really nice team. And then they beat Kansas, and then they started rolling. I will say this, when they are a favorite rolling in, like they went to Central Florida, well, we saw what happened. They laid an egg. But, man, when they needed it, especially in the second half of that BYU game, a couple other times when they needed it, they got it done. So this is you said it best, this is a great success story. It really is.
We'll talk plenty about today's matchup and some of the areas to target. Robert Jones is typically my co-host for Oklahoma State broadcasts. Robert texted me last night some things that he's going to be interested to see, so we'll kind of convey those to you a little bit later on. His Del City Eagles are playing for a state championship today at 1 o'clock against Carl Albert, so we'll be able to maybe pass a couple of score updates along during our post-game show today.
How cool is that, huh? Man.
Now, amazing what they've been able to do as well. The first undefeated regular season they've had in, I think, 30 years. And a matchup a lot of people wanted to see at the beginning of the season, just based on talent, has actually come to fruition today. So,
and how about a state championship where the teams, like, they're right next to each other?
Yeah,
like literally they grew up with playing against each other.
Part of the same school district.
Right? Yeah. Hey, let me ask you. I don't know. Is Carl Albert undefeated as well?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. How can you get any better than that, huh?
Well, I mean, I'm pulling for Del City too, guys, but I believe Mark said earlier this year this might be the best Carl Albert team ever. And that is a mouthful because they have won a ton of state championships.
No, you're right.
So I'm pulling for Del City. Let's just say that's going to be a whale of a game today.
They got like 10 Division I players on
they got
team.
A bunch.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that Eagles fans like about today, and not saying anybody is overly confident. I know Robert certainly isn't, doesn't feel this way, but Carl Albert barely hung on to beat Guthrie earlier this season. That was a 3-point game, and Del City just crushed Guthrie in the playoffs. So that's at least one thing to keep in mind if you look up and you see Del City with the lead here. But I would say Carl Albert is, as Matt pointed out, probably the favorite in this game if there was one. But just saw that happen the other way around with Wagner and Blanchard the other night, where Wagner turned the ball over 6 times. And that's going to have to be something that happens today, Jim, is I think Oklahoma State in the turnover battle probably has to be a +1 at least. +2 would probably really help them. And you go back to, the game in the Wind a couple of seasons ago where Quinn Ewers is 19 of 49 or whatever it was. I think they're going to need a little bit of help today against the Longhorns.
No doubt. I don't know if you heard me yesterday, but I was asking the question. Sometimes I like to get a question and kind of ask all the people. Ask Al, ask Dean, ask Tram. My question yesterday was, give me the top 2 things of why OU beat Texas. And my 2 were turnovers and the ability for the quarterback to run. Those were the 2 things that I thought really won that game for OU. Well, you're exactly right. Texas is really good. I mean, they are. Their defense is elite. So they're going to have to win the battle of turnovers. Unfortunately, Bowman, he's not a great runner, Gideon. So he's going to have to throw it really, really well. And I think that, OSU is going to have to do what they did against OU. OU said, we're not going to let Ollie Gordon beat us. And so Bowman threw it great in the game. And then, as you remember, Gideon, we did the post-game show together. Then after they threw it, loosened it up, here comes Ollie Gordon for his 136 yards, and they win the game. So I think that's probably the template. That's a big word for me. The template that they'll have to use to win this game, I think, is throw it early. And then, because, I think Ollie Gordon's going to have a bunch of runs that are 0-1 yards. I do.
Okay.
I don't think this is going to be one of those games where he's going to gain 7 and then gain 9 and gain 8. I think it's going to be 0-1, but he has to get to 20. He has to get some breakaway things to loosen that up. So I can't wait to watch the game. It's a bad matchup for OSU, but heck, we talk about it. Gundy is amazing when he's an underdog. He is. He's amazing when he's an underdog, and he's not very good when he's a favorite. So they're the underdog, so let's see what they can do.
Again, this is unlikely just within the context of each individual game when you're looking at this. Not only after what happened against Iowa State, where they're driving down at the end of the game, trying to tie that one up, and they lose to fall to 2-2. And then you're staring at who looked like at the time two of the better Big 12 teams. And it turned out to be that way too. Actually, it turned out to be 3 of them in a row: Kansas State, Kansas, and then at West Virginia. Kansas State was a strange game, Jim, in that the Wildcats turned into a team that didn't resemble themselves. They didn't run the football that much. Will Howard turned into really a traditional drop-back passer, which is not his strong suit. That's really the only game, and Kansas State made it closer in the second half, but that's really the only game outside of Cincinnati that Oklahoma State had control of the entire season. Central Arkansas, that's a tight game in the second half. Arizona State, they're down late. South Alabama, they're obviously down late. Iowa State, they lose. Kansas, they're down late before Jason Bean throws a couple of interceptions. West Virginia, they're down late before Ollie Gordon just goes absolutely nuts in the fourth quarter. Cincinnati, that game was tied 10-7 at the half before Oklahoma State gets a score, a turnover, and a score, and then leaves them behind. Oklahoma, they're obviously down late. UCF, they're down the entire game. Houston, they're down by 14. They trail in the second half. And BYU, they're down by almost 20 and trail in the second half. So it has been every single game. The turnaround has been results-based, and it's been ways to figure out how to win games. But it is almost astonishing when you look up at every single game and see that the Cowboys were in peril at some point, and that's why they're almost 17-point underdogs in today's game. A lot of that's based on the way that Texas has played. But a lot of this, we talk about that win total all the time at 6.5. Oh my gosh, they're going to clear that. And they did easily in terms of the number, but it wasn't easy in each individual game because they could have lost any of these.
Yeah, that is so well said, Gideon. The way you laid that out right there was just unbelievably perfect. The Kansas State game, going back to that game, like you were saying, they dominated that game. I mean, they came out from the very beginning, punched Kansas State in the mouth, and they had so many question marks at that point, right? We're thinking, well, they're going to go 3-9?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Bowl
maybe
streak
4-8
on the line.
Yeah. And that game just turned everything around. And, of course, no 3 running backs, no 3 quarterbacks. They went with the 2 guys that have gotten them there now. So really impressive turnaround. And you're right, boy, they have been in peril. But here's the amazing thing. They were an underdog 4 times this year. They went 4-0 against the spread and 4-0 straight up. They won every game that they were an underdog. So there are some positives for OSU going in this game. I don't want to think, I don't want everybody think I'm like doom and gloom. It's just a bad matchup. So when you have a bad matchup with another team, you've got to figure out how to do some other things. And that's going to be the key. I would love to see Presley in space early and Gordon in space. I love when they throw to him, Gideon, get him out there and let him get going. So I can't wait to watch the game. I think it's a tough matchup, but this team's amazing when they're when they're an underdog. They really are.
We're going to talk plenty about Oklahoma State's defensive turnaround. That's been as shocking as maybe anything this season, to watch this team buckle down and be able to get stops, especially late in games. Nick Martin, the secondary, performing a lot better than obviously those linebackers and defensive backs and safeties did earlier in the season. So we'll talk plenty about that. We'll also approach the game from the Texas point of view in terms of what's still on the table for them. We know that Washington is going to take one spot in the college football playoff. Could there be, based on a couple of results today, a spot at the table for the Texas Longhorns if they were able to get a victory in the Big 12 championship game? And we've got a load of experts here to break down today's game and the season as a whole. Barry Trammell from Sellout Sports will join us. Sellout Crowd will join us coming up here in just a few minutes. Mark Rogers, Scott Wright from the Oklahoman, Craig Humphreys, and Marshall Scott from Pistols Firing Blog will all be with us today as we get you set for the Cowboys and Texas. Kickoff is at 11 o'clock today on ABC, and you can hear the game right here on the Sports Animal. Jim Traber is at the Tipsy Oak if you're looking for a place to hang out before, during, or after the game in Arlington. Jim?
Yeah, this place is just tremendous. And I mean, I got the breakfast menu. It's going to start at 9. If people are listening on our wonderful app where you can listen all over the world, they got a great eggs Benedict. They've got lobster Benedict, brisket Benedict. They got just regular bacon, sausage, eggs, toast, biscuits and gravy, chorizo tacos. This is a big league breakfast, trust me. And you can get a shuttle over to the stadium. So yeah, the Tipsy Oak. If you're not in Arlington right now and you come to Arlington some other time, come on by here. It's a great place to be. Let us take the break. This is Countdown to Kickoff, Bud Light Game Time on the road. And when we come back, we will talk to ourselves, I believe. Yes, ourselves again. We got a lot of great things coming up right here on the Leader in Sports, the Sports Animal, the Sports Animal.
Countdown to Kickoff and Bud Light Game Time.
My bad, man.
Oh, that's my bad, dude.
Sponsored by
Championship goes to number 24 Liberty as they beat New Mexico State 49-35.
Countdown to kickoff and Bud Light Game Time on the road. Sponsored by Genesis of Norman, Johnny's Charcoal Broiler, Mr. Electric, Valvoline Instant Oil Change, Nelson Mazda of Norman, Mitchner Fair and Jewelers, and 988 Oklahoma Department of Mental Health. The spark for today's game. Sponsored by Mr. Sparky. Your time is valuable. Mr. Sparky offers same-day electrical service.
You don't have to put up with any malarkey. Call 888-8-SPARKY.
Just about 2.5 hours away from kickoff in Arlington. It's the Big 12 championship game between Oklahoma State and Texas today. Gideon Hamilton here inside our Sports Animal Studios. Jim Traber is in Arlington at the Tipsy Oak, and we're getting you set for OSU and Texas today. And who's going to generate the spark in today's game? Jim, and I have to pass this along. This is one of the notes from Robert. He wants to see and has wanted to see all year long, and I think Oklahoma State has been more successful when Colin Oliver is put on the defensive line and used more as a pass rusher than dropped into coverage. Yeah. And he wants to see that on 20 or more plays today and feels like Oklahoma State can be more successful if that were to happen, where you can just kind of let Colin go a little bit, and that can provide a spark for Oklahoma State.
Amen. I mean, yeah. I mean, I watch I watch TJ Watt every single year, right? I mean, every game. And I'm certainly not saying Colin Waller's as good as him, but TJ Watt will drop into coverage, but probably 4 or 5 times, and I think it's to mess with the other team. But his number one thing is to go after the quarterback. Ewers, he's not a great speedster kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Moves okay, but boy, you want to get to him. You want to put some pressure on him. That's the other thing that we were talking about. How did OU? I talk about OU because they're the only team that beat Texas. OU got to Ewers. They only.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I don't know if you heard us talking yesterday. OU had 19 sacks this year. That's just beyond belief. But they did have some sacks against Texas. So I agree. I think that's a great thing by Robert. I totally agree. Let him go, man. Let Colin Oliver get it because he is hard to block, really hard to block.
One of the things that you're looking for from Texas today is the quarterback is not necessarily as mobile. And one of the strange things that developed for Oklahoma State this season, it's sometimes like watching the Thunder or watching your favorite team. When you see them so much, you know what their weaknesses are. And when teams don't exploit those, you feel like you get a little bit of a reprieve. I was stunned to see Dylan Gabriel not run as much as he normally does against Oklahoma State. And we were very surprised to see them not test Oklahoma State over the middle of the field, not necessarily deep on the boundary where they've been okay, but over the middle of the field where those safeties, a lot of times you are seeing the back of their jerseys chase after guys. And you wonder, as soon as that UCF game started, you thought, with Plumlee and them throwing the ball over the middle, because those are some things that Oklahoma State really struggled with. And it would be hard to imagine that Texas doesn't know about those and you don't see them try a few of those early.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you on that. The middle of the field is a little bit of a weakness for Oklahoma State. Look, here's the deal. They've got some really good players on defense, and they're like 100th in the country in defense.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand that. But I do think that when they've had to, they've made plays. Like, for instance, the BYU game, they gave up a field goal in the second half, right? That's it, a field goal. Now that
final
field
play
goal,
of the game.
Yeah, last play regulation.
Exactly. Yeah. Tied the game, and they went to overtime. So OSU's a weird team. They don't start real good, and Texas has great starts. So I think OSU just needs to not get blown out early, not get punched in the mouth and go down, because if they can stay within 10, 14, they have proven that they can come back. They really have. So again, I'll say it again. Texas is good. There's no doubt. They got more talent than OSU does, but that doesn't mean OSU can't beat them.
Here's the question for you. How good are they? Are they a team that you feel like after today is over could be in the Final Four? A couple of things would have to break right for them. But do you feel like you could look up and say, you know what, I think Texas is one of the best 4 teams in the country? I'd still be a little bit shaky on that, even if they won today.
I think you're right. I mean, obviously, that game last night, Washington obviously is
they're in.
They're in, and they're good too. They're a team that could win the whole thing. They could. Obviously, Georgia is really good. Michigan's really good. Florida State and Texas are the 2 teams that, if they get in, I don't know if they have a chance to win it. I hate to say that, but I don't know if they can win it, because I just think that the other teams might be a little bit a step above them. But hey, look, Texas went to Alabama and won. I don't care. I know that was back when Milroy wasn't really, playing very well, and it was in the beginning. But again, they went there and won, and that's a hard place to win. But I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know if Texas can win the whole thing. But it would be good, I guess I'd say for the Big 12. They're not going to be in the Big 12 anymore. But it'd be impressive if Sarkisian got them there. It really would be. It'd be very impressive.
The thing for Oklahoma State fans that I know that they're holding on to is that Texas over the season has dipped a little bit, it seems, in terms of quality. And there are no easy games within the conference, but Houston's driving down to try to tie that game at the end. You obviously lose to Oklahoma. Kansas State, we watched that game together in the press box. That was confusing as to how Kansas State did not win that game. TCU is a field goal game. Iowa State, that's a close game at half before Texas figures out a way to win it. And they obviously just blow Texas Tech out of the water. a week ago. Now they're winning all of these games, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but it's not like they're beating everybody by 5 touchdowns.
No, you're right. And I mean, I'll just reiterate what you just said. They could have been beaten by a bunch of people, but what is the definition of really good teams, right?
Yep.
You win the close games, and
Right.
that's what they've done. Everybody wants to always say, well, they're vulnerable. Okay, they're vulnerable, and they're 11-1. That's what I know. They're 11-1. So they're good. I mean, they're a really good team. Their defense, I'll tell you what, that Sweat kid, Gideon, man,
Yep.
he'll be a first-round pick, I'm pretty sure, and he'll go somewhere like remember the Davis kid from Georgia, what he's done for the Eagles? I think this kid will do for a team what he's done for the Eagles in the middle. So this OSU offensive line, I mean, are they good? I don't know. Sometimes they look good,
Yeah.
but I don't know if they're any good. Isn't that crazy? They're 9-3, and they're in the Big 12 championship. We have no idea how good they are.
Well, the same thing happened in 21 where they couldn't run at all. Jalen Warren takes it 75 yards for a touchdown against Boise State, and all of a sudden he's the best running back in the conference the rest of the season. Same thing happened 2 years ago, and those guys were still banged up and shuffling guys in and out, and you really didn't know, okay, is it this kid? And obviously those guys are playing better, but it's just amazing how when you finally decide on who the guy should be, then things start to take off, and those guys can prepare a little bit better, and those guys can run block. They know where everything should be going. Everything is just a lot more decisive for those guys, and I think they need it to be that way.
Well, again, real quick, I've been very, very hard on offensive coordinator up there, Dunn, and I think rightfully so. That's me. I mean, some people may disagree. But what I love is, these RPOs nowadays are really cool. I wish I could have run them when I was a quarterback, Gideon. I really do. I just think it's just the concept of the scheme I love. But it wasn't working. So you know what? Why keep banging your head against the wall if it's not working? And that's what they did. They changed it. I'm serious, man. You would agree with me. Gundy is a pretty stubborn guy, okay? Which I'm not ripping him. A lot of people that are good at what they do are stubborn because they believe in what they do. But they changed what they were doing, and it turned the season around. I don't know where they'd be. I think they'd probably be 7-5, maybe, if they wouldn't have done that. And I love what they did. So here they are, Big 12 championship games. Unbelievable. Nobody would have thought it.
If they would have kept rotating guys in and out, especially with and it's one thing for the quarterbacks, and I think that really hindered them, but it's another. I mean, it's Elijah Collins and Jaden Nixon getting as many carries and series as a guy that could potentially be in New York. That's another thing. So hopefully you can kind of look back on that after today and laugh about it. That's what Oklahoma State fans are hoping here. I wanted to circle back where we started here in terms of this game from Texas's standpoint. Let's say that this line is right and Texas has a comfortable win today over Oklahoma State. What are some of the things, I mean, as unlikely as it would be, Michigan losing would be huge for Texas to try to get in. But let's say Michigan wins and Florida State is able to win as an undefeated conference champion, and that leaves one spot. Alabama defeats Georgia. I know you guys have talked about this at length on the Sports Animal over the last week or so after this thing. The picture became a little bit clearer on what would need to take place. Would an Alabama team with one loss coming off of the best win that anybody has had all year get into the college football playoff over a team that defeated them on their home field, albeit, a couple of months ago?
Well, okay. There is no doubt that if that scenario comes up, Texas should go to the Final Four, okay? I mean, they should. They won. They beat Alabama on the road. There's no doubt that Georgia is, the last time Georgia lost, dude, was to Alabama in the SEC championship game. If they win today, that's 30 in a row, okay? I mean, that's unbelievable. And I think it would be an absolute shame if Georgia doesn't get a chance to defend their title, 2 of them. But look, I hate to say it, Texas should get in, but I think Alabama in that scenario would get in. I just think the SEC is powerful. Now, is the SEC as good as it's been? No, it's not. It's not maybe as good, but I don't know how. Boy, Sankey. I mean, I can't imagine what he's going to say if they don't get in. If they don't get an SEC team in this playoff, you know it would be crazy.
Yeah. The team, and we know this is not going to happen, but there would have to be, if you talked about the 4 best teams in the country, there would have to be a legitimate discussion if people had that truth serum that I know that you're in possession of with intent to distribute at some point. There would have to be a discussion about Florida State not being in. I know it would never happen, but without their quarterback and them kind of skating by the last couple of weeks, if you're really talking about the best 4 teams in the country there, if Alabama won today, Alabama and Georgia might both get in.
I agree with you 1,000,000,000%. I mean, look, I think that Ohio State is better than Florida State. I think that Georgia's better. I think Alabama's better. I think Michigan's better. Heck, I think Oregon's better. I do. I think Texas is better. But if you're left out a 13-0 conference champion,
you can do it. Yeah.
Then you might as well stop the daggone process. And Gideon, I've been talking about this for a long time. I'm a proponent. I think when they go to these 12 teams, I think they should bring back the computers for some of it. Not a big, like 25% of the thing. I think it should be computers, because this whole deal of who you play and all this other stuff, I don't think they care. I really don't. I really don't think that they care about the schedule, and that's why Al yells and screams all the time about why play anybody.
Right.
I love you remember what Kirk Herbstreit said about OU that one year? If they'd have played Sam Houston instead of Houston, they'd have been in the playoff. I mean, that's the truth. So anyway, it's going to be an interesting deal. I wish would this not have been a great year for 12 teams? Oh, this would have been an unbelievable year for 12 teams.
Yeah.
I do think that there's, I don't know, how many teams in your opinion could win the national championship?
Oh, I think there's probably, because of circumstances, Florida State is not one of those. They might have been a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Just on the teams on the outside looking in, I think it's probably just going to be Alabama. And after the end of today, I think it'll probably be pretty fitting that there's 4. I just think that 4th might leave a little bit in question, where you could say, well, there might be a couple of teams that could have gotten to 4, but 12, the teams that could actually win the national championship. Oregon, maybe if they got hot, but I don't know if there's too much outside of a handful.
How about Ohio State? You think Ohio State can win a national championship?
I don't know. Okay. I definitely wouldn't pick them. They'd be a little bit further down on the list. I think, again, they might if they got the right matchup, but typically you don't want to say that about a team that's in there.
It sure would be cool in about 2.5 weeks if Ohio State was playing somebody, though.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. No, I agree with you.
That would be some great, what about Oregon versus Ohio State?
Yeah, that'd be a great game.
I mean, how about that? I mean, would that be unbelievable? Yeah, so I think the 12 team is going to be great. And it's so hard with 4 teams. It just is, man. It's hard. And but this year, look, if the chalk happens, well, then we're going to know who's in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if Florida State, Michigan, Georgia win, we're going to have 4 undefeated teams.
Yes.
It's never happened. Not even close to happening.
Coming up next, we're going to ask Barry Trammell from Sellout Crowd what would be on the table for Oklahoma State if they won today. Where might their New Year's Six bowl game take place, and what might be the future ahead for Oklahoma State within the new Big 12 Conference? We'll get into that with Barry when he joins us next. Gideon Hamilton here, Insider Sports Animal Studios, just a little over 2 hours away from kickoff in Arlington between Oklahoma State and Texas. And that's where Jim is right now at the Tipsy Oak. Jim?
Tipsy Oak Icehouse is just incredible. When people are already eating their breakfast, we got a great breakfast out here. If you come to Arlington, come on out here. They got everything. We're outside on the patio. Actually, because the wind's not blowing. It's not bad out here today. It's supposed to get up to almost 70. So if you're going to be after the game, come on over here too, because we'll be doing the post-game show as well right here at the Tipsy Oak Icehouse. This is Countdown to Kickoff, Bud Light Game Time on the road. We'll appreciate all our great sponsors as well. Like Gideon said, Mr. Barry Trammell is next right here on the Sports Animal, thesportsanimal.com, and the Sports Animal app.
Jim, who's going to air it out today? Quinn Ewers, you look at this kind of daunting 70% completion percentage this year. But he has also thrown it to the other team a couple of times here in the last 5 games. What do you think about Oklahoma State maybe being opportunistic today against Texas when they take some downfield shots?
Got to do it, man. Got to get some turnovers. I mean, that's going to be the number one key. And obviously, you can't turn it over yourselves. I mean, that's really, really big.
Right.
And, Bowman's had some really impressive games. But you remember at Central Florida, he threw 2 interceptions in the first quarter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't give it to them. You got to take it. I mean, when you play a team that's better than you, man, you got to get the ball, man. So that's going to be a really, really big part of this game today.
UCF, you had some tips there, but against Houston and BYU, it's just been some bad throws in the first half. Both of those were pick sixes, and both of those put you in a position where you had to come back. And I don't think that's just going to work today as we bring in sellout crowds. Barry Trammell. Barry, good morning. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. And this is really, really exciting. We started off with this. Who would have ever imagined this a couple of months ago for Oklahoma State? But here we are, and this is a very important day for this program.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, win or lose, it's a big deal because, what do we got? We've had, how many of this do we have? 22 Big 12 title games?
22.
This is just OSU's. I think it's 22. And this is just OSU's second to play in. So that's a big deal. It's also a great opportunity to win one of these things. Upset the apple cart, bring some chaos to college football. If Florida State should happen to lose tonight, and Texas lose today, it'd cause chaos, which is maybe important to OSU, but it's not near as important as just a Big 12 championship trophy and really sort of, announcing to the college football world, hey, he's been making a lot of noise in recent years, and here's a lot more noise.
Two of the last 3, right? 2 of the last 3 is the Big 12 as we know it. They will be at the game, here in Arlington. So that's and by the way, should have probably won that Baylor game. I mean, I don't know what in the world they were doing down there, but that's another story. And then they go into this league, Tram, and obviously they'll be one of the favorites. I mean, when you talk about the a program over the past 5 to 10 years, Oklahoma State, Utah. I mean, those are probably 2 of the top teams that are going to be in this new conference, right?
Yeah, and we've always used sort of 2009 when Texas sort of started falling as the launch pad for OSU's rise. OSU had good teams in 08 and 09, but since 2010 forward, OSU's been the second best program in the Big 12 by most metrics, including just straight conference record, which is the best metric. But even though you think of Whedon and Blackman and then Mason Rudolph as the best teams in the 2020s, this is the 4th Big 12 title game, right? OSU is the only team to make it twice. Only school to play in Arlington twice in the 2020s is OSU. So they have a lot of good momentum going into the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma are going to be gone. OSU and Utah clearly, along with Kansas State probably. That's the 3 most successful programs. Who knows the way college football changes these days? You can't keep up with who's who. But it's to me, it's very good foundation on which to launch the new Big 12.
Can you take us inside? I know there's probably a common sense answer to this, but I'd like if you were a little bit more intricate here. Why is Texas such a huge favorite in a conference championship game today over Oklahoma State?
Well, you guys would have to tell me, but I assume it's the schizophrenic nature of these Cowboys. They've been blown out twice by 6 and 6 teams from with directional school names, Central Florida, South Alabama. They had to come from behind the last 2 weeks against inferior teams. 14 points against Houston, 18 points last Saturday against BYU. It's not a great team. We know that.
Right.
It's a resilient team, but Texas is potentially a great team. We know they're a very good team. So, and just in general, I mean, in years when OSU was, clearly superior to Texas, they might be an underdog just because the way the voters or the bettors work it. So it's just a natural inclination for OSU to be an underdog to Texas. But under the circumstances, you can see why that point spread would build and build and build.
Trim, let's talk about last night a little bit, guys. We haven't done it yet, but, I'm not – again, I have not been good at picking games this year, but my T&W title lock of the week was Washington. I could not believe it seemed like every human being loved Oregon, and not only loved them, but for like 5 weeks since they played each other, all you would hear was, Oregon, Lanning made a stupid call, and they're better than Washington, and they're going to beat them on a neutral field, and blah, blah, blah. When are we going to realize this Washington team is really good, Trim?
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to explain it to me why Washington was a 10-point underdog.
I know it.
Somebody have to tell me. I have no idea. But let me tell you what, I enjoyed the heck out of that game.
Oh, what a great game.
Right. And let me tell you, I know we've talked about the quarterbacks all year, but that Washington tailback's become one of my favorite players. That guy's a football player.
Yep.
That's a guy that guy said, I know where the first down bunker is. I'm going to go find it. And he'd get hit late in the game. He'd get hit, and he would start to go down, and he'd still get 3 more yards just because he's good aerodynamics, determination, all those things. And let me tell you, 3 extra yards down the stretch of that game was everything. So hats off to the Huskies. I hope they win the national championship. That's what I have to say.
Barry, in terms of today, we talked about Oklahoma State winning the turnover battle. Obviously, this is a lot easier said than done. They're going to have to establish the run against an excellent Texas front seven. What are some of the things that you think need to happen for Oklahoma State to grab a foothold in this game where they at least have a chance to come up and win it at the end?
Okay, besides the obvious, Ollie run well, or, production from Ollie Gordon, a good game from Alan Bowman, and hoping Quinn Ewers, doesn't play well. Those are the big 3, and everybody agrees. Here's a couple more. Special teams. Texas is really good. Cowboys can be. Over the years and this year, they've had their moments. But I think OSU's got to win the special teams. That's some hidden yards and hidden production they got to try to come up with. So that to me that's a key. Whether it's a blocked kick, a big return, whatever the case may be. If you don't win it, that's tough. If you lose it, you're probably going to get avalanched. So that's high on my list there.
You know what, guys? I really want to see Gundy, and he's so conservative, and that's fine. The guy's a tremendous coach, but I would love to see him do a couple of things like BYU did against them. Maybe a fake punt or maybe, something. The onside kick was great. They were literally an inch away from getting that onside kick. He just hit him just a little bit early. But I'd like to see him pull out some stops in this game when you're a big underdog like this, Tramp.
Yeah, and that doesn't always have to be a trick play. But I wouldn't mind seeing, 4th and 2 at the 48. This is probably a game where you might need to go for it and just see what happens. We saw some of that last night from the teams.
Yep.
And now, if your offense and
you can break whenever you're ready.
No reason to be foolish, but this is a game where you're clearly not the better team. I think we can all agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
Texas is the better team. So how do you make up that ground? Well, an extra possession or 2 is one way to do that, and that's by stealing a possession with a 4th down gamble or such things. Trick plays. I don't know. Ollie Gordon pass. We've seen that. Probably don't need to see that anymore.
Yeah, that was ugly.
But whatever the case may be, they moving Presley around, doing different things with him. He's got to have a big game, I think, because he's such a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
They got to get that thing. They got to get Brandon Presley going.
Totally agree.
And that would be a big boon for this day.
You know what, guys? Thing we haven't talked a lot about this week is Texas has got two tremendous wide receivers and a great tight end. I mean, this will be an unbelievable matchup for their defensive backfield, who at times Tram has gotten lit.
Yes, Sanders is really good. That's a major concern because other opponents for the Cowboys have found a lot of open space. My impression is they've gotten better down the stretch against that. Now, my also impression is the schedule has gotten easier down the stretch. I mean, since winning Bedlam, they played UCF, Houston, and BYU, and that's 3 second division teams. So it should have gotten better, but it needs to really hold the fort today. Can't have, Texas is capable of a big play when you have them covered, much less when you don't. So
yeah,
but they got to play better in the secondary or play well in the secondary.
Tram, thanks so much for the preview. Enjoy the game today.
What's your score, Tram? Give us a score, Tram. What do you like?
I said the 34-17 Texas. I think I don't know that OSU is going to let go of the rope, but they've been climbing uphill for a good part of the season. It's going to be tough to beat Texas today.
Are you at the stadium, Tram? You at the stadium, Tram?
I am at the stadium.
What do they got? What kind of food they got working over there this morning?
No, I don't have any idea. I don't know. I won't be eating for about 6-8 hours. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Tram.
Okay. See you guys.
Very nice.
What did last night? Now the Heisman's not going to be decided until later because if Milroe has, Milroe could be plus 20,000 to win, and if he has a great game against Georgia and they win, then he's winning it. That's the way this thing is. You can. I mean, Tram.
Don't make me laugh.
Trey, this is a 1/2 of one game award. We saw that the year that Kyler Murray won it over Tua because Tua basically got hurt in their conference championship game. And then Devontae Smith was, I think he was like plus 10,000 with 3 weeks left to go. And they played 3 primetime games late in the year and he won it. Yeah. So if Milroe plays awesome in that game and they win, I legitimately think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
That's crazy.
If that does not happen, what do you think about Nix versus Jaden Daniels? Did Bo Nix do anything to lose that last night? A lot of people have Jaden Daniels as the favorite, which he is just an incredible talent and has had a great year.
I would love to see the Steelers draft him, by the way. I think he's really good. I agree with you. Yeah, look, I don't know. Don't you think the 3 guys that are going to be there in New York are going to be Penix, Nix, and Daniels? Don't you think those are the 3 guys?
Yeah, probably unless Alabama wins today. So, I think Ollie would, and I mean, he's done this, but I think Ollie would have to run for like 250 yards today with several touchdowns, and they win in this game today for him to go.
Well, I mean, it's just a shame that he didn't play early. I mean, my gosh, he'd be knocking on 2,000 yards,
right,
if they'd have played him. But anyway, that's water under the bridge. Yeah, the Heisman, I think, is going to be the quarterbacks more than likely. And I don't know. Right now, I might pick Daniels. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I mean, that kid is unbelievable.
Yeah.
By the way,
numbers
Nix
are
is
insane.
Gutsy too. Nix is gutsy, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's a gutsy dude, man. I give it up to him, too. So
good player. If they win that game last night, I think he's probably a lock for it, unless Alabama wins later today.
Boy, those 2 offenses were fun, man. I love those offenses, huh? Good stuff.
No, it was a great conference this year with a lot of great stories, even outside of those top teams. So it'll be interesting to see how those teams perform next year. We're less than 2 hours away from kickoff in Arlington today, the Big 12 championship between Oklahoma State and Texas. And you can hear the game right here on the Sports Animal. Of course, you can hear it on the Sports Animal app, thesportsanimal.com. Alexa, open 98.1 The Sports Animal. Google Play WWLS The Sports Animal, or you can listen free on iHeart, Odyssey, or TuneIn. Just search WWLS. Gideon Hamilton here inside our Sports Animal studios, and Jim Traber is hanging out at the Tipsy Oak. If you OSU fans are driving around, need a place to hang out in Arlington, Jim.
Yeah, I just found out that I lied to everybody for about a day and a half. I thought that there was a daggone shuttle from here, and it's not. So I apologize. I know people are going to be mad.
But you're going to drive some people over as much as you can fit in the car.
Get on my back, and I'll carry you all over there because obviously my back is doing really, really well. But no, listen. Bad communication. I apologize. I really do. But anyway, great food. We got great breakfast here. We're going to have great food after the game, and it's a tremendous place to be, the Tipsy Oak Icehouse here in Arlington. This is Countdown to Kickoff, Bud Light Game Time on the road as we get ready for the Big 12 championship game. When we return, we'll talk to Mr. Mark Rogers on the leader in sports, the Animal.
ESPN Radio AM 640. Also at 11 o'clock today, the MAC Championship, Miami of Ohio taking on Toledo. 2 o'clock, the Mountain West title game, UNLV and Boise State. 3 o'clock, the SEC Championship, number 1 Georgia, number 8 Alabama. Also at 3, number 22 Tulane takes on SMU in the American Athletic Championship game. 3 o'clock today, Appalachian State taking on Troy in the Sun Belt Championship game. 7 o'clock tonight, the Big Ten Championship, number 2 Michigan and number 16 Iowa. Also at 7, the ACC Championship, number 14 Louisville taking on number 4 Florida State. Last night, number 3 Washington beats number 5 Oregon, 34-31 for the Pac-12 Championship. And the Conference USA title game went to number 24 Liberty. They beat New Mexico State last night, 49-35.
Broadcasting sponsored by Parrish Devon, official personal injury lawyers of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Visit pepperwinds.com. WWLS-FM, The Village, Oklahoma City, The Sports Animal, a Cumulus station. Live on The Sports Animal, it's countdown to kickoff and Bud Light game time on the road.
Less than 2 hours away from kickoff in Arlington, the Big 12 championship game, which you can hear right here today on the Sports Animal. Gideon Hamilton inside our Animal Studios. Jim Traber is at the Tipsy Oak in Arlington. And right now we welcome in, you know him from the Middle of the Day show here on the Sports Animal. Mark Rogers is with us. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gideon. How are you today?
Doing great, and really excited for this game today. Know it's going to be a daunting task, or that's seemingly everybody thinks, for Oklahoma State today, but they've kind of overcome the odds this season in a lot of ways based on where they started.
Yeah, I mean, they really have. And Oklahoma State's just historically been pretty good as an underdog. They've historically been pretty good against Texas. And they've got personnel on the offensive side of the ball that I think can compete in the game today. So I expect it to be a good game. I think it's going to be close. I don't think we'll see Texas win going away.
Yeah, this game is so weird for me because I just don't know how OSU is going to score a bunch of points against this defense, Mark.
Well, I think one thing they need to do is they kind of come out slow against BYU and Houston, not as much against BYU because they did go down the field in the opening drive and then they had to settle for a field goal, got a turnover and then had to settle for another field goal, and that kind of thwarted their momentum. But they have to come out being aggressive, calling plays, or at least setting themselves up. In the Houston game, they came out throwing it, and they really didn't hand it off to Ollie Gordon at all. They can't do that today. They can't get behind against a defense like Texas and really come back. But at closer look, this is a Texas team that, that game at Alabama by far was their best game. But they had some holes. I heard what you guys talked about yesterday, Jim, with Barry, that OU did run for over 200 yards against Texas. Some of that was the quarterback run game and on design quarterback runs. So maybe Oklahoma State can have some wrinkles today with potentially Ollie Gordon in the backfield, some other stuff like that as a Wildcat quarterback, some things that they might have a little bit better chance. But I think that OSU's offense is going to be able to put up some points.
What is the strength of this Texas team, and what would be the biggest concern for you if you were on the Oklahoma State coaching staff today?
I think they have 3 legit strengths. I think their offensive line has now played together for quite a while and is pretty good. I think they also are good on the defensive line, but I think they're credible. Their strength is on offense with the explosive plays that they've got with Xavier Worthy, with Adonai Mitchell, and then also Jatavian Sanders, the tight end. I think those guys can really make some big plays. So that's an area where Oklahoma State's been poor this year. They can't give those big plays up on defense if they want to win the game today. Sweat's the defensive player of the year in the conference. He's tough to move, 345 pounds. So that run game defense against Texas is really good, but they haven't faced a back as good as Ollie Gordon this year. I mean, and I really don't think it's close.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, before we go back to the game, and I want to talk a little bit maybe about last night, but let's talk a little bit of high school football. Robert Jones, who usually does this, is Del City undefeated. Carl Albert undefeated. They live right next to each other, same school district. Give me a little preview on this game, man.
Well, I think they've got 11 Division I players on the field. I'm talking like Power 5 Division I guys. And the biggest difference for Del City this year has been the guys that have moved in, River Warren at quarterback, and then LaDainian Fields and Rodney Fields, wide receiver and running back. LaDainian's going to TCU. Rodney's going to Oklahoma State. And those guys are incredibly explosive. So I think that gives them a chance. Like last year, they met in the second round of the playoffs, and Carl Albert shut them out 18-0. Carl Albert has a bunch of transfers of their own. Guys that have come in and played really well for them. OU's quarterback commit in 2025, Kevin Sperry, and then Marcus James, the tight end that was at McGinnis last year. So I'll tell you what, Jim. I mean, it's a coin toss. It's going to be a battle. Can't wait to see it.
Matt Meyer said that there's some people talking that this might be maybe one of the best Carl Albert teams. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. No, I thought that maybe at the beginning of the season, and they've really done nothing to, if you go back through the history of the Carl Albert program, they've been very few times in which they've been undefeated. They've always had a tough schedule and kind of battled their way back to go through the playoffs, kind of being battle tested. Ironically, both these guys were on, what you might consider one of the best Carl Albert teams ever, with J.D. Runnels and a few other guys. But I mean, I think that, yeah, if they win tonight or this afternoon and go undefeated, I think you'd have to say this is the best team they've ever had.
Mark, what do you think?
Probably even Mike Dunn would say that too.
Mark, what'd you think about the game last night, Pac-12 championship game?
Well, man, I mean, Washington was the more physical team. They've kind of struggled on the defensive line throughout the season, but they just handed the ball off to Dylan Johnson, and he was a man amongst boys last night running the football. So I think it's been a great coaching job by Washington this year. When they won that game at Oregon State in a really, really tough spot, I think that kind of signaled that they may be a little bit better. But people kind of decided, and maybe I was in that group too, that Oregon was just going to run away with this game and forgot to tell Washington. They showed up and played great.
I've been talking for about 5 weeks. I just don't understand why it is that everybody thought that. I mean, I know that Lanning made a stupid call. They might have won the game. I know all that, but gosh, I know Washington here lately. Penix, I think Penix has been hurt a little bit. At least he looks like it, but I don't know. Nobody gave, and a 9.5-point spread, Mark. That's crazy in that game.
Well, yeah, but Penix didn't look like that last night, man. He was threading the needle on some throws. He played great.
I know it.
But when you have the running game that they had last night, that's a pretty good combination. I don't think either of those Pac-12 teams. I don't know. You put them in the playoff, and I don't think it's going to look that good against the SEC.
You don't think Washington can win the national championship?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I heard you talking about this. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gideon. I'm sorry. The wide receivers outside are good players. Quarterback's good, but I think on the other side of the ball, teams will be able to do what they did to Oregon last night.
I heard you talking about this earlier this week, using the Blutarski chance. But again, for our listeners right now that might have missed that, Alabama wins today and Texas wins. Who gets in the college football playoff?
Well, if Alabama wins and Texas wins, Alabama's getting in. If Florida State loses, again, they may have their third-team quarterback tonight, that's Texas' chance to get in.
Yep.
But I don't even know what you do with Georgia, but I think absolutely there's a better chance that two SEC teams get in than none. There's to me no scenario on planet Earth in which the SEC doesn't have. They have two one-loss teams that have been really good all year long, but then they don't have a representative of the playoffs.
And by the way, that's probably not the way it should be, but I agree with you. I just cannot see holding out Alabama. I just can't see it. But I know everybody's going to yell, Texas beat them. I understand. Crazy.
Everybody's got an opinion on that, and if we all ranked them here, I don't know. I would think that if Alabama wins, they're playing a really good enough football to deserve to be in. And I would probably have them ranked like that, but you have to go by the season and the schedule. I mean, and you did have Texas and Alabama played. It's been 2.5 months ago, but I think you have to honor the fact that they scheduled that game. Texas won on the road. would be a conference champion with just one loss, I mean, they would deserve to be in. Now, that scenario happens if Florida State wins tonight, and then I think we really got a lot to talk about.
So let's talk about some games today. Okay, here's my question to both of you guys. If I gave you $500 of my money, okay?
Oh, I like this plan.
And said you have to make a wager on the Michigan-Iowa game, what would be your wager?
That's easy. That's easy for me.
Under?
Give me Iowa on the points.
Iowa on the points. I agree with you. I actually, Gideon, what would you pick, Gideon?
If it was free money,
yes.
It'd be really tough. I mean, I could see 31-7, 38-10. I can almost see that right now. So I think you guys are probably on the right side, but I wouldn't be able to watch the game taking Iowa in the points.
Oh, it'd be terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible. I wouldn't want to watch that game if you pin me down. I don't want to watch. I close my eyes. Jeez.
Hey, listen, I watched a lot of that Iowa and Nebraska game last week, and I thought it was really interesting. I mean, you never know what can happen with turnovers, and the game was going fast, so they'll get over pretty quick.
Weren't there like 14 punts?
Iowa's 10-2 to the under this year, and they keep cranking that total down on them. Where last week's game goes under by a half a point. Or a point, 24. But, I mean, I don't think Michigan's going to try to beat them really, really bad. Now, Michigan will cover if Iowa turns it over 2 times.
Break when you're ready.
But if Iowa doesn't turn it over, I think that game is Iowa covers.
Okay, Alabama, Georgia. I'll start with you, Gideon. What are your thoughts on that game?
Oh, I think if Alabama doesn't pull out a miracle a week ago, then maybe this number is different, and maybe the perception of this game is a little bit different. So Georgia with 4.5, I like that one. Wouldn't be shocked if Alabama won, but I would be surprised.
Mark?
Well, this is Georgia's biggest test this year, but the quarterback has Carson Beck has played better in the big games this season. And if you look at his numbers in the big games, he's been pretty good. And they've got a lot of weapons, but mobile quarterback against a defense is just not quite there. I'm gonna go with Nick Saban in this one. I give Alabama a big pass on that game last week against Auburn. I mean, I think that Auburn's coming off a terrible loss. Alabama's got the SEC championship game kind of as a look ahead, and I just think they weren't ready for that rivalry. So I'm gonna take Alabama.
What about Louisville and Florida State? I know about everybody in the country is rooting for Louisville, I think, so they get Florida State out of there. But what are your thoughts on that game, Mark?
If they have to go to a third-team quarterback, I do still think that the Florida State defense gets to play in this game, which is really good. I think it may be too much for Florida State to overcome if they have to go down another quarterback. So I think that I'll take a little in this game. It's a reversal from what I picked on Thursday.
It's crazy, Gideon. I mean, these words, when they come out of my mouth, I'm going to sound like a total idiot. I do that all the time. But I think Louisville was overlooking Kentucky. I really do. I think that, I know that's crazy because it's a huge rivalry, but I think Louisville was thinking, okay, man, who knows if there's a bunch of losses, we could maybe beat Florida State, maybe even get in the championship. And they just they came out dead against Kentucky,
Yeah. The thing about Florida State the last couple of weeks is they've gotten behind. These are against teams that are not offensively talented at all. The one thing Louisville can do is score a little bit. So if they get off to a slow start today, they're not going to be able to come back.
I think you're probably right. All right, Mark. Where are you down here, Mark? Are you in Arlington? Or?
No. I'm back here in Oklahoma City.
Are you guys doing anything? Got something going during the game or anything?
No. If somebody's got a good watch party, hit me up.
Okay.
Come over.
So let's break this thing down. Give me a couple keys to it. What you think might happen down here?
Okay, I think for OSU, limit big plays. The OSU defense has been pretty good at taking advantage of turnovers this year. I get the big one last week from Rucker to end the BYU game. I think they have to be creative on offense and keep Texas guessing. I don't think, like I said, I think it's going to be the biggest challenge of the year for the Texas defense in stopping the run. If they expect to show up and just kind of handle business like they normally have, I think Oklahoma State's going to be able to have some success. So turnovers is always important. If Oklahoma State can force them and keep away from them, then I think they're going to be in the game. Do we have an injury report on Halski, the center for OSU, went out of the game last week?
Yeah, I haven't.
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
No, I haven't heard anything either.
Well, I mean, he'd be a big key. If he's not there, that's going to make things a lot more difficult in the run game.
Yeah. I just think, Mark, I don't know about you, but I think that they have to do exactly what they did against OU. OU said, we're not going to let Gordon beat us. And so they came right out. They said, well, we're not going to run Gordon then. We're going to go ahead and throw the ball and try to loosen things up. And he still ran for 136 yards, and they win the game. I think they've got to approach it that way. Do you agree with that, Mark, or do you think you go with Gordon no matter what?
Well, no, I mean, I think you can't go away from him the way they did to start that Houston game. I mean, you can't forget that he's there. He's that big of a weapon. And that's what teams try to do. If Texas shows up and goes, well, man, we got Oklahoma State not to run their best player, that's a big victory for them.
Sure.
So I think that that's what I meant by being creative. They've got to figure out a way to, if the defense is going to give them a pass, that's fine, but they still have to get the ball in Ollie Gordon's hands, whether that be throwing it to him or, like I said, a wildcat formation or something like that. They have to be able to keep him relevant.
Yeah.
Mark, appreciate the time. Enjoy the game today.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, guys.
That's Mark Rogers. Coming up next, Scott Wright from the Oklahoman will join us, and he has an update on who's in and who's out of this game for Oklahoma State. Gideon Hamilton here, Insider Sports Animal Studios, about an hour and a half away from kickoff, and Jim Traber is at the Tipsy Oak in Arlington.
Yeah,
Jim?
if you're listening on the app and you're in the area here or listening wherever, you can come to the Tipsy Oak after the game. It's going to be incredible over here. We'll have a great crowd. We'll have the Alabama-Georgia game on TV. Great food, drinks. It's a tremendous place. It's called the Tipsy Oak Icehouse. And if you're back in Oklahoma, next time you come to Arlington, come here. It's a great place, the Tipsy Oak. This is Countdown to Kickoff Bud Light Game Time, live on the road. Like Gideon said, we will talk to Scott Wright next on the leader, and I mean huge leader in sports, the Animal.
IRS problems? No problem. Call 405-451-3399.
Less than an hour and a half away from kickoff in Arlington today. The Big 12 championship will be decided between Oklahoma State and Texas. You can hear the game right here on the Sports Animal. Gideon Hamilton inside our studios. Jim Traber is down at the Tipsy Oak. Weapons of the game. And before we bring Scott Wright in, Jim, I've always thought Xavier Worthy is one of the best skill players in this conference. And I think the more they try to get the ball to him, the better for the Longhorns today. Robert Jones going with Brennan Presley, not necessarily having as big of a day as he did a couple of weeks ago, but trying to utilize him as much as possible. Who's a weapon of the game for you today?
I think that you mentioned both of them that I was thinking about. I mean, I think that this could be whoever has more yardage between Worthy and Presley might win the game, because I think those two dudes they're both tremendous weapons. But I talk about this as we bring in Scott Wright. You know, Scott, if a team shuts down Gordon, which I think this Texas has a chance to at least slow him down, I think you need to throw it to him out of the backfield. Remember when he first came in against Kansas State? I think it was the first play of the game, if I'm not mistaken. He went for about 40 yards. I don't think they do that enough and still get him the ball that way, Scott.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong plan to try to get him outside the tackles and try to do some things out there because, you know, this interior of the Texas defensive front is just so strong. You can't you can't double one guy. You're going to leave a really good player in a tough situation. So I think you've got to try to stay out of the middle, even though that's an area where they've had a lot of success running the ball. Even against Cincinnati has that Dante Corleone, who I think is one of the best defensive tackles in the league. They were able to run the ball up the middle against them, but that's just one guy they had to worry about. Whereas this defensive front poses some more difficult issues. I think they need to try to get Ollie on the edge a little bit more and get him in space and let him do his thing out there.
Scott, you're there in the stadium already. What can you tell us about who's in and who's out for Oklahoma State today?
We're just starting to see some guys taking the field. I want to see who all is officially in uniform, but no new injuries that are known at this time. We'll see if there's anybody that's not pressed when they get out here and start stretching, but nothing notable at this point. Of course, guys like Jason Brooks Jr., Talon Shetron, guys that were not expected to play are certainly not going to be
Mahalski.
How about Mahalski?
I think Mahalski's going to be fine. I shouldn't say fine. He's definitely banged up. He's definitely dealing with some injuries, but I do expect him to be on the field today.
Scott, you've been covering this team for a while now, and you've been around here a long time. This is one of the more amazing turnarounds for this team. I said this earlier. I've been kind of saying it a couple times. Mike Gundy is a stubborn man, which, by the way, a lot of great coaches and people in professions have some stubbornness to them. But he realized they were doing the wrong things, and they changed it up and really salvaged, even more than salvaged, in the Big 12 championship game, which nobody thought after that Iowa State game they had any chance for this, Scott.
No. Listen, I was already making plans for what I was going to be doing during the holidays, during bowl season, because I didn't think I was covering a bowl game.
Yeah,
I thought I was going to have some time off, but here I am at the Big 12 championship. It's remarkable where this team has come from since late September. You look at what Mike Gundy has done to get to this point, and obviously some of those wounds in September were self-inflicted. They could have handled things differently early, and maybe things go differently. But to hit rock bottom the way that they did after South Alabama and then Iowa State, to get back to this point is I think it's Mike Gundy's best coaching job in a single season.
Scott, give us a sense of how this one plays out, and if Oklahoma State is able to pull off another unlikely result, it'll be because what happened. We pointed to being +2 in the turnover margin. Maybe you get either an unconventional score or at least set up a short field with something that happens in this game. What do you think needs to happen for Oklahoma State to be in this one today?
Yeah, it's going to be little things like that I think keep Oklahoma State in. If you go steal a score that way or set one up, you're getting touchdowns when you get red zone opportunities. This Texas red zone defense is the best in the country. Oklahoma State has been really good in the red zone, but they also settle for field goals on a pretty good clip. So you need to get touchdowns when you get those opportunities. Texas has been one of the most penalized teams in the league this year, where Oklahoma State is number 2 in the Big 12 in terms of fewest penalties. So take advantage of what Mike Gundy likes to call hidden yards, a good return here or there. And then you guys talked earlier about Brennan Presley. I think they need him making an impact early to try to loosen some things up. And we've seen when he can get going in a game that it opens up things for Ollie Gordon later on, second half, that type of thing. So they need Brennan Presley and some of those other receivers really playing well and being impactful early, and Alan Bowman to be on point. He's been a little bit shaky the last few weeks here. They need him to be on point and dealing the ball out to make some things happen early in the passing game.
Give us a score, Scott. What do you like?
You know what? I think Oklahoma State can keep this one close. I think they can be in it at the end. This Texas team just feels too powerful to me right now. So I think Oklahoma State is going to drop this one. And I'm going to take 34-27.
All right, Scott.
Enjoy the game today.
Good deal.
All right.
Thanks, fellas.
One of the things, real quickly, Jim, that Robert passed along to us here today is, especially with Jaden Bray being healthier, not that you have to target him a lot today, but he or Leon Johnson, you have to at least throw it to them a couple of times to loosen things up for Presley underneath, and Rashad Owens, who, is an 11-yard route type of guy. You at least need to show Texas that you're willing to do that. And maybe you are going to hit on one of those plays, but you at least need to show them that you will spread the field vertically a little bit, because we know what they want to do. And it's those short routes that are a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So you need to free up some room for those guys to operate.
Yeah, listen, if it's me, Gideon, I'll take it a step further. First play from scrimmage, I'm going play action to Ollie Gordon and firing it down the field right away. To let Texas know we're coming. We're going to pull it all out. We're going after you. And now, of course, if you get the ball your first time on the 8-yard line or something, you may not be able to do it. But if you get it on a 25 to start the game, boom, play action to Gordon, run, Leon Johnson down the field, throw it up in the air, might get a pass interference. You never know. So I really feel that Gundy has got to pull the stops out today. He has to do this, and he did. Look, he's coached better in the OU game the last couple of years than he ever has. He didn't go into a shell that he has. This is the same type of game. This team is better than them. So pull out some of the stops.
The thing that we saw increasingly as the season went along in games where he felt like he needed to win was not necessarily throwing in gadget plays, but it was a lot of pre-snap motion that they would try to tell a story through and get teams moving in the direction that they eventually wanted to go away from in those games. So that'll be interesting to see how much pre-snap motion Oklahoma State uses in this game today. Gideon Hamilton here inside our Sports Animal studios, as we are just about an hour away from kickoff in Arlington between Oklahoma State and Texas, the Big 12 championship game, which, by the way, you can listen to here on the Sports Animal. We'll be running the game live today, and then we'll be with you immediately following the game, taking your post-game phone calls. We've also got Thunder basketball later on tonight. That is also in the DFW area, as the Thunder will take on the Dallas Mavericks. I know a few fans that are going to do the double today and go to both of those games. That one will tip off at 8 o'clock tonight. We'll be on the air at 6:30 for the Metal Store Thunder forecast. Jim Traber is hanging out at the Tipsy Oak in Arlington. Jim, tell us about it.
I wonder if Doncic is going to play tonight. He had his first baby, I guess, and I don't know. Was the baby born? I don't know what happened.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
A baby was born. Typically, those guys are there for the birth of the baby, and hopefully he needs to do what he's going to do selfishly for us. You hope he's out there and we get a chance to watch him play and see the Thunder get tested against him. But typically they're there on the day of, and then you'll see them play in the next game. Don't know if how much time they had for the turnaround, so we'll see.
Julie and I, we went to a establishment and we sat down to watch the Washington and Oregon game and have a little dinner, have a drink, and the TV next to it had that game on, Dallas and Memphis, and
got smoked by the Grizzlies.
Killed. I mean, it was just Bane was lighting them up, man. And and Kyrie Irving after about the first quarter said, "Yeah, we're going to lose, so let's just keep playing and we'll move on to the next game." He does. So, yeah, Tipsy Oak Icehouse, great place to be. We've had a wonderful breakfast. After the game, we'll have food and drinks as well, plus the Alabama-Georgia game will be on. So come on out and see us. If you're in the area, we'd love to see you. This is Countdown to Kickoff, Bud Light Game Time, and it is a great day when we talk next to Mr. Craig Humphreys right here on the Leader in Sports, The Animal.
O'clock today, the Big 12 championship game between number 18 Oklahoma State and number 7 Texas. Also at 11 o'clock today, Miami of Ohio takes on Toledo for the MAC championship. 2 o'clock, UNLV taking on Boise for the Mountain West championship. 3 o'clock today, number 1 Georgia is playing number 8 Alabama for the SEC title. 3 o'clock today, number 22 Tulane taking on SMU for the American Athletic Championship. Also at 3, the Sun Belt Championship, Appalachian State and Troy. 7 o'clock tonight, the Big Ten Championship, number 2 Michigan and number 16 Iowa. Also at 7 tonight, number 14 Louisville taking on number 4 Florida State for the ACC Championship. Last night, number 3 Washington beat number 5 Oregon for the Pac-12 Championship, 34-31. And also yesterday, number 24 Liberty beat New Mexico State, 49-35 for the Conference USA Championship.
Countdown to kickoff and Bud Light Game Time on the road. Sponsored by Eskridge Honda, Paris Devon Injury Lawyers, Travis Watkins Tax, Triple Play Home Services, Twin Peaks, Chapel Supply, and Interurban. Who will be today's clear leader?
Say it again, Craig.
Sponsored by ClearSight.
Yeah, I've got you, Craig. I sure do.
ClearSight.
Thanks, man.
43vision.com for info.
Just about an hour away from kickoff in Arlington today. Oklahoma State and Texas. Game on TV on ABC, but you can hear the game right here on the Sports Animal. Gideon Hamilton inside our studios. Jim Traber is at the Tipsy Oak in Arlington, the clear leader for today's game. Before we bring in Craig Humphreys, Jim, Robert says it has to be a guy like Nick Martin, but the coaching staff has to make it a little bit more advantageous for Nick to use his speed and his ability, blitz the linebackers a couple of times in this game, and see if those guys can get to the quarterback today. Nick has been such a pleasant surprise beyond that, even with the impact that he's made for Oklahoma State's defense this year.
Tremendous player. I mean, you lose Mason Cobb and you think, well, this guy's basically better than Mason Cobb. He had a better year. So it's been a great job. And I totally agree with you. I think Robert's on top of this thing with Colin Oliver earlier, and then now with him. They have got to get to Ewers. If he stands back there, these wide receivers and that tight end will light OSU up. That's the truth. It doesn't matter. They will light him up if they let him just stand back there.
All right, let's go ahead and bring him in. You know him as the host of Sports Morning here on the Sports Animal, and he's going to do the double today, Jim. He is going to join us for a segment of our pregame for Thunder basketball a little bit later on, so we're going to be able to get Craig's thoughts on the Thunder later on today. Craig, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Gideon. Morning, Trabe.
How you doing, Craig?
Oh, Trabe, hey, first of all, great pick on that game last night, Trabe. I have loved this Washington team. Matt Meyer can tell you all season long. I got afraid. I mean, coming into this game, there were a lot of rumbling about injury to Michael Penix. First 6 games, he had a 92.2 QBR. His last 6 games had gone down to 71.3. His completion percentage was down. His touchdown rate was down. Interception rate was up, and so forth. I got to admit, I got scared on that game, so I didn't make it my T&W Tire Lock of the Week. But I loved Washington winning this game because Trabe, they're just a tougher team. And after that first game, what did everyone say? Oregon lost the game because they got a dumb coach and he went for it on 4th down. Yeah. No one gave Washington credit for stopping them on 4th down and winning.
For 5
winning
weeks,
all the big plays.
For 5 weeks, locally and nationally, all we've heard is, well, Oregon's definitely going to beat Washington, blah, blah, blah. And then that line was ridiculous. That line should have been 3, Gideon. That's what that line should have been. It should have been Oregon given 3. And but when that thing, it's like, good job, Craig. I don't get sucked in.
Look at the big plays.
Yeah.
Well, big plays. Last night, 3rd down, Washington 10 for 15 on 3rd down. And time after time after time, they were just tougher. They just won it at the line of scrimmage. And with so much talk about Bo Nix versus Michael Penix and this and that, these games are won most of the time in the trenches. And that's where Washington won this game, just with Dylan Johnson running for big plays when he had to on 3rd down. I thought that was the big thing, is that Oregon's top running back, well, they got 2. I mean, with Jordan James and Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving only had 20 yards. James had 35 yards. Yep. Leading rusher, Bo Nix. But what I'm saying, their leading tailback had 35 yards, while Dylan Johnson had 152 yards.
I thought they underused Irving. I don't know why. That dude is a star, and he can fly. They hardly gave him the ball. I was shocked.
He carried 9 times. Yeah. Dylan Johnson carried 28 times.
I know. I mean, it just didn't make any sense.
Right.
But
and having McMillan back was a big deal at wide receiver.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, with Odunze and Polk are 2 really good receivers, but now you add Jalen McMillan back after he had been out with the injury. He had 9 catches for 131. So, no, that's a darn good football team.
Here's a question, though. And Mark said earlier that he thinks that they have no chance. And then, Gideon, I want you to comment on this as well. Can Washington win the national championship, Craig?
I think they can, especially if they're matched up with Texas in the 2-3 game. We'll see how it all plays out today, but I think if they could wait and play Michigan in the title game, I think Washington could win a national title.
Yeah, I think if they play Georgia, Gideon, it'll be really tough.
Yeah, it's all matchup based. The reason why a lot of people thought Oregon was going to win, Oregon was, their schedule wasn't the greatest, but they were winning comfortably, and Washington was barely winning against pretty much everybody that they played.
Yeah.
And that includes, I mean, you can go back to Cal, basically. I mean, their last 7 or 8 games were 1-score or 2-score games. Right. And so people are thought, somebody's going to jump up and bite them at some point. So anybody in the top 4 could win. I just don't know if many people.
And listen, and Penix,
let's see if George is there.
Yeah, you're right. And Penix the last few weeks looked as if he was hurt. He looked like he wasn't playing his best football.
No,
Craig?
There were a lot of rumors and people trying to get injury information out of these guys these days is impossible. But no, he looked good last night. But and I love Michael Penix, but I really don't think that's the real reason. He was great last night, but their ability to run the football in key situations, they won all the big 3rd down plays, is what I'm saying.
When you watch Penix, do you not think that you're watching Tua? It's shocking. Obviously the left-handed, but he also, he doesn't have that unbelievable arm. He just kind of, but he puts it where it needs to be. Yeah. Gosh, he reminds me a lot of Tua. So, all right. Anyway, let's move on.
Craig, what do you think about this game today? What do you think will be important if Oklahoma State wants to keep this close or win this game today against Texas?
Well, listen, you're talking to the wrong guy if you're asking me about OSU. Because Gideon, I've locked the Cowboys twice.
Okay.
And they lost those 2 games by a combined 78-10 against South Alabama and UCF. All right?
Oh, that's beautiful.
So my other locks, I'm 9-2 when I don't pick OSU as my lock of the week. So I promised the listeners a few weeks ago that I would never again. Of course, I knew I was going to announce my retirement the next week, but I promised that I would never again pick the Cowboys. And so, no, I don't understand. I know they got to get off to a good start because a lot of times they do get off to bad starts. Even the last couple of weeks against Houston and BYU, they got off to bad starts, came back from 14 against Houston and 18 against BYU. They cannot afford to get off to a bad start. Texas, on the other hand, gets off to great starts, and then a lot of times they let people back into the games. Both of these teams settle for field goals. If you ask me, Gideon, I mean, I would tell you, I think for OSU to win the game, Ollie Gordon has to rush for like 180, 200 yards, and I just don't think that's possible against Texas. And so I guess I would have to say for OSU to win this game, they're just going to have to force, at least 3 Quinn Ewers interceptions to win the game, because I just don't think they're going to be able to do it by running Ollie Gordon like they do against other people.
Yeah. Bowman, you just don't know what you're going to get. He's had some tremendous games like OU, and then although the balls were tipped, he had the game against Houston and he had the game against Central Florida. So I just don't, you just don't know what you're getting with him. I think
he can have success, though.
Yeah.
I think Bowman can have a lot of success because Texas has given up some big plays in the passing game. I mean, to me, that's the weakness of that defense. The strength is like we said, their ability to stop the run. But Alan Bowman, I mean, you look, last week, Presley caught 9 balls. Leon Johnson caught 9 balls for 132. Rashad Owens has come up big in big games. And now Gideon, as you know, I mean, they got Jaden Bray back. That can be helpful. So, yeah, I think OSU can have some success throwing the football. But I don't know. This Texas defensive front is just by far the best in the conference, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think you would have to say that. And Leon Johnson, by the way, is a terrific story. Trabe, George Fox University, and it was. You don't want to burn your rate. You want to play another year. That's one of the reasons why he came here, is because he knew there was going to be another season on the tail end of this, and they had to have a meeting with him saying, look, if you play the way that you played against Cincinnati, we know nobody wants to do this right now, but if you play that way again, we think we have a shot to win a conference championship with you out there. Otherwise, that team was really depleted in terms of receiver at that point. And he said, okay, let's do it. And here they are. Ended up paying off for him.
Is this his last year?
Yeah. So this will be his last year now.
Boy. I always love guys when somebody comes from a school that I've never even heard of. Okay. I mean, I'm 61 years old and I've been I've been around sports for 55 of those 61 years.
Well, that means you like every coordinator that Gundy hires.
Well, it's a good point. Although
Shippensburg.
I've heard at Shippensburg, I had a bunch of dudes I went to high school with that went to Shippensburg, not only for football, but also lacrosse. So that's my area. But
where'd Nardo come from?
Nardo came from, what was the name of that school? Golly, it's in Pennsylvania, isn't it? Is it? Sorry. Well, anyway, you're right. That's a good point. But, when I found out this guy was from George Fox, I said, what?
Gannon University.
Now, that one is very obscure. There's no
that
doubt
sounds like
about
that sounds like a place that Craig would have 3 degrees from. Gannon University.
Yeah, I like that. But, look, he is a great story. You're right, Gideon. And I'll tell you what, you throw it up to him, he comes down with it, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's not like he's just another body out there. Craig brought up his numbers a week ago and what he's been able to do. Craig, these receivers, Owens, Bowman is obviously very comfortable with him. Bray, they don't throw it to him a lot, but at least he can stretch the field. And then Brendan Presley, I know you're familiar with him from his high school reputation, with everybody that talked about him as being one of the best high school players from the state of Oklahoma in recent memory. And finally, they've fed him a little bit more, and that's really paid off.
No, he's been their best receiver, and he had 9 catches last week. And also, he can hurt you running the ball. He can hurt you, in the return game and so forth. So, listen, my one pause, most of the week, I've been thinking, well, Texas should win this game by 20 points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But OSU, Gideon, as you know, they held 2 other top 10 offenses, K-State and OU, under 30 points. So at times, this OSU defense, they can rise up and get stops just like they did in basically shutting out BYU in the second half last week until that last play field goal or whatever. But when they had to get stops, in other words, when they're down 18, that defense helped them get back in the game.
No, you're exactly right. Craig, give us a sense of how you think this one ultimately plays out today.
Well, like I said, OSU gets off to the terrible start. Texas gets off to the great start. I just think if they dig a hole, even 15 points in this game, I think it's going to be really tough to dig out of. I do think this Texas team, and I know I heard you guys, arguing about Alabama and this and that. Hey, to go into Tuscaloosa and win, I mean, you got to have a really good football team, and I think they are. So it's no, I'm not trying to diss OSU in any way, and there's no way I would pick OSU or even pick them to cover based on what I've done to them this year against South Alabama and Central Florida. So I'll go ahead and say Texas 37-17.
All right, Craig.
All right,
we appreciate you, brother. By the way, Craig,
thank you,
do you have a calendar where you're
Yeah.
Xing out the days? Like every day you wake up and X the day out? Is that what we're doing?
I'll tell you a true story. Sam was talking to me this week and said, well, what are you doing? Why are you off on next Friday and and I'm going, I'm not, I thought I was working all the way through the 21st. This was done back in August and I forgot I had negotiated Fridays off on December the 8th and 15th.
Oh my
So
God.
that's 2 days I can mark off.
Well, very good.
He's shopping for Hawaiian shirts online. He's already got some on the way.
Very nice. Craig, we appreciate you, brother. Thanks.
Thanks, Trey. Thanks,
Yep.
Gideon.
And
All right.
You can listen to Craig for the next 3 weeks, 9 a.m. right here on the Sports Animal, Gideon.
Gideon Hamilton here inside our Sports Animal Studios. Marshall Scott from Pistols Firing Blog is up next. And Jim Traber, you're over at the Tipsy Oak in Arlington.
Yeah, if you're listening on the app, down here in Arlington, please come on over after the game. We'll have a great situation over here. You'll be able to watch the Alabama-Georgia game, get some great food, have some drinks, whatever you want to do. Weather's supposed to be nice. Hopefully these clouds will go away and the sun will come out. But we're having a great time. The Tipsy Oak Icehouse in Arlington. This is Countdown to Kickoff Bud Light Game Time, live and on the road. Dr. Marshall Scott right here on the home of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Sports Animal.
And Oklahoma City.
Big 12 championship game today. Number 18, Oklahoma State taking on number 7, Texas. That game about 45 minutes away. Also about 45 minutes away, the MAC championship, Miami of Ohio going to Toledo. Actually, that game is in Detroit today. 2 o'clock, the Mountain West championship, Boise State and UNLV. 3 o'clock, the SEC championship, number 1, Georgia, number 8, Alabama. Also at 3 o'clock today, the American Athletic Championship, number 22, Tulane and SMU. 3 o'clock today, the Sun Belt Championship, Appalachian State taking on Troy. 7 o'clock, Big Ten title game, number 2, Michigan and number 16, Iowa. 7 o'clock tonight, the ACC Championship, number 4, Florida State and number 14, Louisville. Last night, the Pac-12 Championship, number 3, Washington beats number 5, Oregon, 34-31. And the Conference USA crown goes to number 24, Liberty. They beat New Mexico State 49-35.
Broadcasting sponsored by Parrish Devon, official personal injury lawyers of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Visit pepperwinds.com. WWLS-FM, The Village, Oklahoma City, The Sports Animal, a Cumulus station. Live on The Sports Animal, it's Countdown to Kickoff and Bud Light Game Time on the road.
Guys are up.
45 minutes away from kickoff in Arlington, the Big 12 championship game right here on the Sports Animal today. Gideon Hamilton inside our studios. Jim Traber joining us one final time at the Tipsy Oak for pregame. He'll be with us for football feedback, Bud Light Game Time, live from the Tipsy Oak a little bit later on today as well. We'll be taking your postgame phone calls and wrapping up this regular season anyway for Oklahoma State. And right now we bring in a good friend of ours, been with us for every pregame show this year, Marshall Scott from Pistols Firing Blog, great daily resource for OSU News. Marshall is in the stadium right now. Marshall, what's it look like?
It's starting to fill out a little bit. I was just got back up from the Brett Yormark news conference, but yeah, it looks like the doors are open, and it's a lot of orange, whether it be burnt or bright.
Did Brett wink at you when he said he was cheering for both teams today?
He did not. I thought he handled it. Pretty well. He got a ton of questions about OU and Texas, really. It's at this point, what do you want him to say? That they are going to be out of the conference, and that's the majority of the questions he got asked. But I think he overall handled it all right.
Did anybody ask him about the stupidity of what he said at Texas Tech, or is that just gone now?
Yeah, no, he did get asked about that. He said something about not going backwards, only going forward. And that he's
I love that.
today.
That's the perfect thing. Whenever anybody does something stupid, just say, "Well, let's look forward now. Forget about what I said." That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Marshall,
I'll remember that going forward.
Marshall, let me ask you a question about Oklahoma State. How good is this team? Because they're down late in almost every game that they play. They very easily, and I know you can look at every college football team and go, well, that one could have gone the other way. Well, they could have won that one. They could have lost that one. This team easily, I mean, very easily, could have lost 4 or 5 more games this season than they did, but they found a way to make critical plays on both sides of the football in the fourth quarter. How good is this team really?
I think that's kind of the million-dollar question. I've seen this team lose to South Alabama. I've seen this team get blown out in Orlando. But at the same time, I saw them, compete really well, beat Oklahoma. They've beat Kansas State. They beat Kansas, pretty convincingly, honestly. So I have no idea. And it's kind of a weird time in the year to not have an idea on how good a team is. But maybe we'll find out a little bit more today.
That's a tremendous point. They're playing their 13th game, and we got no idea how good they are. That's just crazy. It really is. Hey, I would really like to see Mike Gundy pull some stops out today, when you're this big of an underdog and everything, kind of like BYU did last week with OSU. And we all know that Mike is a very conservative kind of guy as far as coaching is concerned. What are your thoughts? You think there's a chance that he might do some of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to have to, even, outside of, your traditional trick plays, they've had that quarterback throwback that they seem to use in every big spot. So maybe look out for that today. But even outside of that, I think they've got to use a ton of motion, especially with Brendan Presley, to just try and keep that Texas defense off balance a little bit. And then, I think at this point, are you saving any trick plays for, the Texas Bowl or the Alamo Bowl or, wherever you end? I think, if you've got them, I think today's the day to use them. And it's kind of an interesting spot for Texas in that, you should expect Oklahoma State to do something. So maybe, those defenders will be on alert for different types of things that Oklahoma State could throw at them. But I think if you've got a fake punt in, you've got to use it today. If you've got, any sort of trickeration to try and keep Texas off balance a little bit, I think today's the day to use it.
Jim, Marshall absolutely nailed this one because the question about today in terms of how aggressive you are is what's on the line. And maybe you can tell me if I'm being naive here because there's a lot of money at stake, recruiting. People are going to see this, and this is a big deal, and you want to be competitive in this game and you want to win this game. But in reality, it's not like if you lose it, you're losing a chance to play for a national championship.
Right.
You want to play in New Year's Six. You want that notoriety. That is meaningful. Don't get me wrong. But what's on the line and what do you lose if you go for it today? And to me, the answer is not as much.
No, you're right on the money. I totally agree with you. And look, here's the other thing too. I've come down here to cover this game a lot for both OU and OSU, and I always say the same thing. This is the game. I mean, we got Toledo and whoever, Miami of Ohio, I guess, is going on, but this is the game that people are all over the country are watching this game. There's not 10, 15 games going on, Marshall. So you can really do some wonderful things here. And, you got to pull them out. You got to do some things. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really what this game, is going to come down to is whether Texas feels confident enough to, not load the box. Teams have been loading the box against Ollie Gordon all year. Does Texas feel like its run defense is good enough to not have to do that? In that case, it's going to put, Alan Bowman in a lot of stress. And maybe the Texas defense is good enough to do that. Obviously, Devon Fish-Sweat and that defensive front is outstanding. But what I'm kind of interested in is they don't load the box. OSU has a little bit of success running. How quickly Texas can kind of adjust to that. But as far as, letting it all out there goes, this is the most important game on Oklahoma State's schedule this year. Maybe outside of Bedlam, but, this is not only big for Oklahoma State. This is big for the Big 12. If they could find a way to send Texas out of here without the Big 12 championship trophy, I think that would be huge for not only Oklahoma State, but the Big 12, obviously.
Marshall, what was your pick on the site?
Yeah, I think I took Texas 31-24. And I'm kind of a little shaky on that right now. Obviously a big spread for this game, but I kind of see it either going blowout Texas or it being really close. I don't know that it's actually going to be a 15, 16-point game.
Yep.
In the end. I think it's either going to be big or close.
Marshall, real quick before you go, what bowl? You brought up the bowl situation. Obviously, if Oklahoma State wins today, they're going to be going to the Peach or one of the New Year's Six. If they lose, I gotta believe that OU probably goes to the Alamo Bowl, and then OSU? Do they go to the Pop-Tart Bowl? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that say Oklahoma State loses, I think that it would be Houston for the Texas Bowl. I think that's the most likely right now, but I think the Pop-Tart Bowl would definitely be in that. There could also be a world where, some teams lose today and maybe OU bumps up into the New Year's Six, in which case that would send Oklahoma State probably to the Alamo Bowl, or maybe it sends Kansas State. But I think it's kind of all out there right now. I think most likely right now, though, will probably be back to Houston for the Texas Bowl. But I think a lot kind of still on the table as far as Oklahoma State's bowl situation goes.
Marshall, appreciate the time. As always, enjoy the game today.
Thanks, Marshall.
All right, thank you, guys.
That's why the bowl system needs a continued overhaul, and why I eventually do think that this thing is going to get up to like 32 teams, and all of these bowl games will be used as playoff games for the ultimate playoff, because teams just don't have. Remember that incredible turnaround we had that year in 23 and ended up playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Right.
I just think they're going to eventually add, some more meaning to these games. This will be way on down the road, but I think that's probably where we're eventually heading here. There's one more thing I wanted to keep in mind of this game. If it is close, and I know not many of us expect that it will be, but Robert did talk about a big play in special teams, and you have to make all of your field goals and extra points. And this almost really bit Oklahoma State a week ago, and they've had a couple of blocks here over the course of the last 3 weeks. So Oklahoma State has to convert on all of those opportunities when they get them. But in this game, Jim, you probably need to be scoring touchdowns instead of kicking field goals.
Yeah, you're right. And that's a great point you bring up about that extra point. I mean, you're right. I mean, they almost lost that game because BYU could kick a field goal instead of have to go in for a touchdown.
Right.
So that was a really, really good point. Yeah, we don't talk about special teams enough. We really don't. Hale has done a great job of kicking for the most part this year.
Yes.
He really has. And, the special teams at OSU normally are pretty good. So, but Texas is good too. So that's a really big part of this. OSU has to play perfect today or close to it. They just do. I mean, this Texas team is good. In the past, we haven't talked about Texas like we are now. This is the best Texas team they've had since Colt McCoy was the quarterback. And this would be a monumental victory. I actually think, Gideon, everybody talks about that Notre Dame win 2 years ago as being one of the best for the program. I think this one will be right up there with that, Gideon. Do you agree with that?
I think it'll be more important because it would have been a conference championship, shared in 76. They won it in 2011 when there wasn't a game. And so this will be the first time that they win a conference championship game. So I think it's more important because it vaults them into something. And it's also this year after these big two are leaving to where people can say, okay, if you want to play in this region, what are some of the teams that you want to play for? And Oklahoma State is a part of that conversation because they would have just won a conference championship and played in this big game in front of everybody. The thing I want to leave you with before we get your pick and your keys for this game is I think if Oklahoma State doesn't get 2 turnovers in the first half and still wins, I'll be stunned. So I think that's how great they need to play, or they need a lot of help today. I think there are some things Oklahoma State can do well against this Texas team, but I just think if they get stopped on 2 or 3 drives, I don't think they're stopping them back. You know what I mean? Enough to stay in the game. So go ahead.
I think you're right on the money, and I'll add on that OSU, they can't just go out there and play their normal game and win this game. They can't. I mean, unless of course Ewers throws 4 interceptions or something. They've got to do some things out of the ordinary. I talk about this all the time. Imagination in your offense. Do some things that they haven't seen, and move this Texas team and let them think about it. That's why I'm saying, first play from scrimmage, I'm faking to Gordon and throwing the ball deep. and I'm going to let Texas know right away, here we come. Get ready. We're coming after you. And I think that's their chance to win. So I hope I'm wrong, but I got Texas by about 20. I just don't like OSU's chances. But, hey, they're really, really good as an underdog. So that's what they got going for them. And I can't wait. I hope it's a good game, and I hope OSU wins the game. But Texas is really, really good. So really good.
Jim, enjoy the game. We'll talk to you immediately following on Football Feedback.
All right, Gideon, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, Jim Traber's been down at the Tipsy Oak. He'll be there for post-game as well. If you've made your way down to the Arlington area, want to get by and see Jim, that's a really, really